it happened a long time ago, so it's a pretty long story, but I'm 33 years old now, and I was originally diagnosed with ulcerative colitis when I was about 17 years old. So I kind of have had it for a long time, and I think, it also speaks to the success of High Carb Health and their program and your program, because it's just amazing that, we were able to, yeah, heal it and basically put it into remission in the time that we worked together. She pretty much said like it's an IV therapy that you're going to get every 8 weeks, and it's pretty much for the rest of your life, And I'm like, when that kind of hit me and sunk in, I was like, like there has to be another way. I started reading about the immunosuppressant that she wanted to put me on, and there's some, yeah, it's pretty dark stuff on forums out there of people, on those drugs and having really, really awful symptoms. But just getting this amazingly stable energy. So there's no more like, I used to have a lot of 2, 3 p.m. crashes. So it gets to 3 p.m. and you're just passing out, right? And from the caffeine, and just realizing that on this protocol, like it's just stable, it's nice, stable, medium to high energy. It's never like you feel like crazy, like you're on caffeine, like you're kind of tweaking out, but you always have this nice, really stable energy. And then slowly, yeah, we saw a reduction in bowel movements, and then just some of the other accessory stuff, that just all these little things that you start noticing, like body odor. I'm like, wow, like I have little to no body odor anymore. It's insane. I'm like, how is this possible, right? Kind of bad breath, like all this stuff just started getting better. So just, all these little cues from your body of like noticing that, you really are cleaning up from the inside. So that was like it's a really cool side effect of the program. This past summer, that was something massive that I noticed was almost, I think, to be honest, every performance, every time I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for this climb. I'm going to go all out for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it was, I would be successful with every attempt, which, the
Mm.
consistency, incredible. You just really got to kind of trust, and then have faith, have some kind of faith that, this will work out. Because, if you look to the countless clients that you guys have worked with and help them cure these diseases, like, it works.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of IBD Heal, a podcast brought to you by High Carb Health. I'm your host, Shakul, and in today's session, we've got the amazing Devin Morrison with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shikul.
I'm very excited to have Devin on the show because he's got quite a unique story of healing his Crohn's disease. Interestingly, Devin was already vegan before he started working with us, but as we're going to discuss during the show, some of the changes he needed to make to completely get rid of Crohn's disease. And he's been doing really well. He's quite a competitive cyclist as well. So we're going to go into a bit of sports nutrition. And I think you're studying that currently, aren't you? Like sports, some kind of
Yeah,
sports
kinesiology.
kinesiology. That's the one. And so we'll kind of talk through his Crohn's. We'll talk about a bit of sports nutrition and athletics and how the body changes when you actually take care of your diet. But to start off with, Devin, I'd love to hear about what your life is like after Crohn's. So over to you.
Yeah, so it's just amazing. I mean, one of the major things is just not being super nervous around like bowel movements when you have like important life events coming up. And like Shakul mentioned, I'm in school for kinesiology. So, around exam time and that, it used to be, not the best, because, I'd have stomach issues and stuff and be nervous. So that's a major benefit. And then just not being tired all the time. That was like a really big one for me, being tired, exhausted, anemic for a long time. So those are the two big ones for sure that come up.
And how has it affected your life overall? If you talk about what your life was like when you still had Crohn's disease and it was impacting you compared to now having completely got rid of it, and what kind of quality of life do you have comparatively?
Yeah, comparatively, just a way better quality of life, from improved energy to the sport performance, like we talked about, that just absolutely skyrocketed. So in terms of like overall confidence, that was like a really big confidence boost for me, because I had been, training so hard for years and kind of had just hit this plateau too. And, I wasn't going anywhere with my sport. So that was really hard. And this kind of just helped me realize, that there is a life after Crohn's and it's amazing. So, that was a really big one. And yeah, just overall, just being a happier person for sure with, less of the disease symptoms to deal with, which can, and I know I didn't have it as bad as some people. Some people can have it even way worse than that. I can't even imagine if it's, really extreme, how much that affects your life. So, I mean, all in all, yeah, I'm just so grateful to just, yeah, have a way better quality of life now.
I picked up on the fact that you were talking about your exams and how when you were going through, like, obviously exams are a stressful time. And when you're going
Yeah.
through those kind of times that your Crohn's would play up and you'd have increased symptoms and things like that. Can you
Yeah.
talk about, I think you've just been through a period of exams, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk about the difference now when you've gotten rid of it and you don't have those symptoms anymore? What was the difference as you went through that exam period?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's maybe a little embarrassing for some, but not using the toilet, that's a big one. So just having, my normal routine in the morning before the exams and no surprises or anything of really rushing to the toilet because I'm nervous. So I mean that's a huge one. And then just overall like kind of stomach pain. Like I would definitely get kind of like an acidic feeling in my stomach and just, real bad stomach pains and that kind of stuff. So all of that has basically disappeared. I mean, there's still a little bit of nerves that comes with it, but basically normal digestion and all of the rest. So that was a huge one. And then I think it just plays into, your overall stress level too, because all of that, negative stuff is not happening. So then I just felt, almost too calm for it. Sometimes you want, a little bit of arousal before the exam. So you're sharp and focused. But yeah, I definitely was very calm and relaxed for these exams. So that was a major bonus.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to hear when people talk about how their life changes, and that's the whole point of going through this healing process and healing yourself and getting rid of the disease so you don't have to deal with it anymore in your day-to-day life. So uh really stoked for you, mate, and how you've been able to achieve it. But let's go back to the start and how this all began for you. When did you realize something wasn't quite right? And talk us through the whole process of going to see the doctor and the medical system, etc.
Yeah, so it happened a long time ago, so it's a pretty long story, but I'm 33 years old now, and I was originally diagnosed with ulcerative colitis when I was about 17 years old. So that, going on about 16 years ago. So it's been, a long time. And I think I took some Asacol and took some drugs for a few years. And then, I found out about the whole vegan movement and stuff. So I went vegan probably around 19. And I guess I just kind of thought, like, oh, going vegan, like I'm just going to cure myself. So I went off my medication and was just kind of confident that, through eating this way, and sure, there's probably, some symptom improvement in that. But then I think from kind of the age 19, 20, all the way, until this previous year, I think I was kind of just under the illusion that it was in remission. And through that period, I didn't have regular colonoscopies, but I got a few. And they would always kind of reveal disease, and I was like, I can't be right. So I was kind of a little bit in denial. And then this last February in 2022, I got another scope because I just hadn't been feeling great. Yeah, and I've been anemic for years, so that was like I was trying to get to the bottom of that. And then the disease, I guess, had progressed and got, worse from where it was and turned into Crohn's disease. So
Mm.
that was kind of the diagnosis. So I kind of have had it for a long time. And I think, it also speaks to the success of High Carb Health and their program and your program because, I had the disease for so long. And I know that, if you've had active disease for a really long time through reading David Klein's book and stuff, that, it can take a long time to cure and to heal from it. So yeah, I think that's kind of how it began. And yeah, so I've been dealing with it a long time. So just amazing that, we were able to, yeah, heal it and basically put it into remission in the time that we worked together. So yeah, it's incredible.
Absolutely. And What I'd like to know a little bit more about was how did it start for you? What kind of symptoms were you experiencing as you went through your colitis Crohn's journey? And what kind of advice did you get from the doctors and what did they say about medication, etc.?
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory. My brother got he was diagnosed with Crohn's when he was around the same age as me, but he's a few years older. So I think my parents were already kind of tuned into the symptoms. So I think I was having some bloody stools, and really, I remember really bad, like extreme cramping, like really bad pain. Digestion pains were like extreme. So those were kind of the two symptoms. And then yeah, I mean, it's a while ago now, but they diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis. And then I remember for sure being put on Asacol. They must have put me on some kind of steroid at the time too to reduce the inflammation, and then just kind of Asacol as like a maintenance thing. So yeah, that's what they prescribed, and I was on that for a couple of years after that.
All right, cool. And so February 22, you got a colonoscopy and gave you a bit of a wake-up call. What did you do from that point, and what made you decide to think about working with us and making some changes to your diet and lifestyle?
Yeah, so I got that diagnosis, definitely a wake-up call, especially when for some weird reason they never really tested my calprotectin either before, which is like a measure of, your bowel inflammation. And so I got that, and I mean it wasn't extremely high. Some people, get into thousands, but it was like 360 or something like that. So it's quite high, and I had a, quite high level disease, and I kind of, almost couldn't believe it because like I like to say I was kind of like 50-50 pretty healthy vegan. Like I was having my smoothies, but I was like doing all the wrong things. Like I was putting protein powder in with fruit, right? Which is like a major no-no. So I was, my food combining was terrible. And then I was having quite a few, of the vegan junk foods as well. But so I got that diagnosis, and then yeah, for a couple of weeks I was feeling pretty low because I was like, what am I going to do? And then I was waiting until I had the appointment with the gastroenterologist, which was probably a few weeks after once they got all the blood results and that. And so I spoke with her, and she didn't give me like an option really. She just said like, this is a treatment plan. This is what we're going to do. We had to get, funding approved because it was one of the new immunosuppressant drugs that they wanted to put me on. That's really expensive. And she pretty much just said, yeah, like we got the funding approved. So we're going to start you on this, and I was kind of like,
Hmm.
okay, like, there's, in my head, I'm like, there's no choice at all. Like here, it's just like, this is what we're going to do. And so I asked her like, is this something that I'm going to be on a long term or what? And then she pretty much said like it's an IV therapy that you're going to get every 8 weeks, and it's pretty much for the rest of your life, And I'm like, when that kind of hit me and sunk in, I was like, like there has to be another way. And I had actually heard about you guys for probably at least a year or so, and I saw that, and it had been on my mind. But I think again, like I said, I was just a little bit in denial of like, oh, my disease isn't that bad, right? Like I'm sure I'm kind of in remission because my symptoms weren't like extreme.
Hmm.
But so then I just thought about it for it was really only a few days, and I was like, this is it, right? Like this is my time. I got to do this. Like I'm probably just going to progress into poorer health if I keep doing this. And I knew right away, like I don't want to do these drugs. Like I don't want to be on. I started reading about the immunosuppressant that she wanted to put me on, and there's some, yeah, it's pretty dark stuff on forums out there of people, on those drugs and having really, really awful symptoms
Hmm.
from and side effects from those drugs. So yeah, that's how it went. And then yeah, had the first consult. I think it was with your brother, yeah, Shamiz, and then from there, that was it. I was just like, yeah, let's do this, like, and yeah, jumped right in.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so talk about some of the things that you'd learnt as you went through the information, because we send you a very detailed information pack when you start up with us. And what did that kind of show you from what you were doing to what we were recommending? Kind of talk about some of the differences that are recommended.
Yeah, so a big one was reading David Klein's book. You guys had sent me that. So just kind of reading through that. in addition, because you guys have like a really, the information pack is really nice and condensed, but being a student in that, I kind of wanted to expand my knowledge. So I pretty much read the entire book front to back. So that, combined with the condensed notes that you guys have and structure of the program, the major things for me were food combination, the alkalinity of food, so the acid-base balance of food,
Mm,
and realizing like, wow, like I was having tons of acidic food.
mm,
I didn't have a soda addiction, but I really
mhm,
liked sodas. So, I'd treat myself quite often with a soda because I thought, oh, I'm a fit athlete, I can handle it. It's fine. It's just a bit of, carbonation and sugar. Um, and then for sure, probably focusing too much on proteins, just being an athlete, like, oh, I need to get my protein. So I was eating a lot of, processed, fake vegan meats and stuff like that, which are high protein, which again is, high acid because you're getting a lot of amino acids with it. Um,
mm,
yeah, just really understanding that acid-base balance. And then food combination, that's a huge one. So, like I said, I was putting wrong stuff in my smoothies, right? So I was having awesome like banana smoothie, but then I'd have, say, chocolate soy milk in it, which, moderate fat, high protein. And then I was tossing a scoop of protein powder in there too, so I was like mixing all this stuff that digests poorly. So that,
mm,
that was a big one. And then, I mean, I had a fair bit of salt too. So that was a little bit of a wake up call too, that, like I said, I ate some processed foods, and processed foods are super high in salt. So
mhm,
for sure, lowering my salt content was a big one. So I'd say those are definitely some of the big things that I took from, you know, the very first session and information
mm.
pack that I got.
Yeah, those are some very important things, and I think you pointed out a very common mistake that we see that a lot of people make is that they don't understand how to make a smoothie that's going to digest properly. It's
Yeah.
very common. You see it everywhere. People putting protein powders in their smoothie, people putting nuts in their smoothie, people putting avocados in their smoothies, and just yeah, making it wrong basically. And when
Yeah.
you do that, your digestion doesn't like it necessarily. Some people can get away with it, some people can't. But you don't know the difference until you make the change. So if you
Yeah.
haven't tried something better, how do you know what good? If something is good but you haven't tried anything better, how do you know that it can get better unless you try? So you brought up David Klein's book. Can you talk about some of the differences from what he recommends, or how does the program, like when you get personalized or private access to work with us, how do we customize the I guess the solution to you compared to what's in the book?
Yeah, so I think with you guys, and again, I don't know if every client is a little bit different, of course, but with me, I think David Klein definitely kind of recommends as fast as possible and as raw as possible. So he's a really big proponent of like the raw food. And I know you guys definitely, well, through my journey, we kept me on cooked starches, pretty much every night. So I do kind of like the raw till four style. That's what worked for me. And I know I've talked to a few other clients that have gone through the program, and they did prefer not raw till four. So they were doing fruits in the morning and then, like maybe some steamed vegetables and stuff for lunch. So it's definitely, customizable and a little bit different than David Klein's program. As I said, he really, recommends the kind of the raw lifestyle. And then later on, I did, start kind of experimenting with some raw days. And I really feel like that, it makes you feel amazing and light. And in the summer, it's definitely easier to maintain for sure. Now I'm in winter over here, and, sometimes it's tough if I'm having a cold smoothie for lunch. In the, it's 4 degrees and raining out. So it's kind of but yeah, just kind of sticking to that kind of framework really helped for me, and that's kind of a little bit of a difference between David Klein's book. And then I think maybe he's a little bit too rigid in terms of like, absolutely no salt. And you guys still said, you can have a little bit of salt in my program. I think that definitely helped with, athletic performance in that. So yeah, I think that was the kind of the main difference there.
Yeah, those are some good observations, and obviously when someone writes a book, they have to give some rigid guidelines, right? So if you're following a book, you can't say, okay, well, you can't think of all the different scenarios that someone may experience. So obviously when you have private and customized coaching that's specific to your needs and your symptoms, it's going to change depending on what you require compared to just this is what you do in terms of what's in the book. So that's a
Yeah.
good observations there. Talk about how your body sh changed and shifted as you went through the journey. So as you kind of uh, were able to change your diet and make the adjustments that we recommended, what what changed in terms of your symptoms?
Okay, so there's a lot here. So for sure, at first, and I'm sure a lot of other clients go through it. At first, there was a detox period. Kind of before I signed up with you guys, I kind of had this like I don't really believe in detox. You
Mhm.
hear a lot about it, and I'm like, is this really a thing? And let's just say it's definitely a thing. So I detoxed, pretty hard over a week. So I just felt like I kind of, had a really bad head cold and yeah, I was kind of really under the weather. But then after that, it just very quickly started to, get better. And I did have, in terms of like bowel movements and that, it wasn't like, we didn't see a extreme reduction right away. So, it was around that kind of 5 or 6 for a while I was adjusting to um, the new diet, lots and lots of fruit, obviously doing the raw till 4 thing. So that was kind of the first little bit. And then pretty quickly I started to see like a huge increase in energy. That's like a major thing. So just being more vibrant, more energy, and then stable energy. Because before I drank a fair bit of caffeine, not an extreme amount, but some days I would have up to 4 coffees a day. If it was a tough study day or something like that. So
Mm.
definitely more coffee than you should be having. So, getting off of that, I think that definitely added to the detox as well, detoxing from caffeine at the same time. But just getting this amazingly stable energy. So there's no more like, I used to have a lot of 2, 3 p.m. crashes. So it gets to 3 p.m. and you're just passing out, right? And from the caffeine and just realizing that on this protocol, like it's just stable, it's nice, stable, medium to high energy. It's never like you feel like crazy like you're on caffeine, like you're kind of tweaking out, but you always have this nice, really stable energy. Um, and then slowly, yeah, we saw a reduction in bowel movements. And then just some of the other accessory stuff that definitely David Klein touches on in his book. But like, it's just all these little things that you start noticing, like body odor. I'm like, wow, like I have little to no body odor anymore. It's insane. I'm like, how is this possible? Right.
Mm.
Kind of bad breath, like all this stuff just started getting better. So just all these little cues from your body of like noticing that you really are cleaning up from the inside. So that was like it's a really cool side effect of the program. Like you yeah pretty much don't even need deodorant anymore because you just yeah you don't smell at all, right? So that was a huge one. And then of course the blood work that was a really quantifiable measure of my liver enzymes were super elevated, the calprotectin, white blood cells, like all this stuff. I had a lot of, poor blood work. And I think it was like 2 months, like we saw everything pretty much back in the normal range, except a couple fluctuations here and there throughout the 6 months. But that was, yeah, a big quantifiable measure.
Yeah, talk about how your calprotectin levels were dropping as well over time because it didn't take very long to go from 300 to less than 100, and we'll probably put some pictures up on the screen from your results so if you can see that. But how did you find that, and how did you feel about it?
Yeah, so like I said, in February 2022, when I saw the gastro and then I got all the blood work and stuff done, the calprotectin was around 320-ish. And so that was in February. And then 4 months later, I guess, in June, it had dropped already to 120. So, more than cut it in half, which is huge. So that one I was thrilled. Like that was, a little bit nervous before, like, oh, is it
Mhm.
going to be working? But I knew that, like, and we had talked like well, you feel great, everything's like going well. So of course it's gonna be down, right? But then that was just so awesome to see. And then in September, the next one, I saw it down to like 80. And most measures, I know they have like depending on the lab and kind of the protocols that they use, typically under 100 calprotectin is like a clinical remission. So I don't know if that measure might have been slightly off, but it's basically in the ballpark of clinical remission in like 6 months, which I mean, again, like we touched on that I had bowel disease for pretty much 16 years. I mean, I think that's an incredible achievement to, you know, get that get that down like we did.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I want to touch on a little bit with Devin is that Devin's quite a athletic person. He likes to ride his bikes. He's just getting into running and strength training, and he's been racing bikes for a little while now. And as he said before, that he found that he was plateauing, like he couldn't see the improvements in his athletic performance, and part of that's obviously to do with the fact that you still had inflammation and an IBD hanging around, kind of like this kind of weight on on over your head, or just hanging around like an unwanted guest or something like that. But
Yeah.
what differences did you see as you started to implement some of these changes and eat better in your cycling performance and just how you felt in general when you were exercising?
Yeah, so big one was just getting stronger on the bike. So seeing power go up because they use like a power meter on the bike so you can measure, exactly how much wattage you're putting out. So just kind of seeing those durations go up and setting PRs for that. And then with just eating so clean, I saw some favorable changes in my body composition. So I got a bit leaner, and that definitely helped with climbing because with cycling, power to weight ratio is super important. So if you can be a little bit lighter, you're going to go faster up the hill. So that was a major one, and I just started to see like wow, like my climb times that I've kind of set years ago that I wasn't able to break, and I tried so hard the last few years. I just saw them start to fall easily and make huge leaps and bounds with that. And then just a consistent performance. So with me before with racing and stuff, I seem to like I would just have random good day. Like I would just have a random good day and be like, okay, weird. This is, a good performance, but I'd have a lot of bad days. So a lot of days where, say it was like a performance that was really important to me. I was just going out to get, you know, on Strava, which is like a cycling based app that you can compete with other people. So maybe I was just going out to do a segment on Strava or something, and I would fail often, and I would feel, like really depressed because like, why can't I do this? And so this past summer, that was something massive that I noticed was almost, I think, to be honest, every performance, every time I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for this climb. I'm going to go all out for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it was, you know, I would be successful with every attempt, which, the
Mm,
consistency incredible. So, as athletes know, if you can be consistent, then you're going to make more gains, right? And I think that was a huge part of how I made so much progress,
mm.
especially with my climbing performance on the bike this summer.
And I think when we were looking at your stats and the amount of kilometers you're riding, you beat your best times with much less riding, didn't you? You were riding nowhere near as much as you normally would, and you still actually beat your time.
Yeah, so typical, I think the last few years I rode at least 12,000 plus kilometers. And in the summer I did a lot of miles. And this year, I don't even think I've gone over 8,000 K. So, massive reduction in volume. And especially last winter, I didn't really have a great base because, as we kind of started to go through the beginning of the program, I was trying to really keep it chill and not do too much training because, I knew that, if you train hard, right?
Mm,
Like some exercise, very light is good, but hard training is obviously going to kind of drag out the healing process if you're giving your body another stimulus to deal with. Um, so yeah, that you know, huge reduction in volume usually always correlates with less performance, right? So most people, yeah, if you train less, you're gonna have a lower performance, especially in cycling. Like volume is very tightly correlated with higher performance, especially in the pro cyclists. Like, you know, to a certain level, of course, 25 to 30 hours a week. But typically, the more hours you can get, the more zone two work you can get, the better your mitochondria are going to function, et cetera, et cetera. So that was definitely an incredible thing to note that, we got a way higher performance with way less volume, which is incredible.
Yeah. And yeah, I remember you're quite always wanting that apple celery juice before before your big performances, weren't you? Loving that.
Yeah. 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 That's any athletes listening to this podcast, that is an absolute game changer. Yeah.
Don't tell
Yeah.
them. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that apple celery juice, man. It's like rocket fuel.
Yeah.
Um, so talk about how that relates to some of the things you're doing now with your studies in terms of kinesiology. Like, how do you feel like your healing experience is going to help you help other people?
Yeah, I mean, just knowing, what what is the right thing to do. Of course, when people, if I'm training clients or working with clients in the future, and if, things about nutrition come up, it is difficult with some people that don't want to change, their lifestyle. But I
Mm.
find often that, if you can be in really good shape, you can be a good role model, just kind of leading by example, people will kind of come to you. So I think it will be a huge benefit because, I can demonstrate to them, look, like I have the results to show that, I've cured what the doctor told me was an incurable disease and what, the pharmaceutical industry wants you to believe is an
Mm.
incurable disease, which is wrong. But so just being able to, yeah, lead by example, people will see, oh wow, he's really fit, he's cured this disease. Maybe there is something to, food combining, or maybe I can, have some make better choices in my life, and look at the acidic foods in a meeting and like, oh wow, I am having a lot of acidic food. So yeah, I think it can definitely have like a kind of a domino effect on people in the future for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, people can talk the talk all they want, but until you've actually walked your talk and have demonstrable results that prove that what you're saying is achievable and then repeatable,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's all theory until you can show that, you know. So, absolutely, when you're working with your clients, it's going to be a big benefit, I think, just like it is for me and Shamiz. Like, Shamiz did it 11 years ago, and he's still going strong and stronger than ever. And so, absolutely, it's such a wonderful thing when you've actually walked your talk. I think it's so important.
Yeah.
And speaking of walking the talk, you're going to give some advice. So before the session, we kind of talked about this, and I always like it when our clients, because they've you've been through a lot, and you've had some real major learnings all through the last, what did you say, 16 years?
Yeah.
Um, 16-ish years of going through and having colitis and then diagnosed with Crohn's later on. And so I think as you go through those journeys, and when you come out the other side and you realize, okay, well, now I've healed it, there's a lot of advice and experience that can be shared with people. So we did talk about it before the session, and you've kind of captured your thoughts, and I'd love to hear what you have to say to people watching this who are maybe struggling, or they're going through colitis or Crohn's disease, and they're looking for a solution to help them get rid of it for life. Yeah, let's hear your thoughts on what kind of advice you'd give someone else who's listening.
Cool. Yeah. So I came up with three things. Number one is just stick with it. So again, it sounds, simple. For some, it can be hard. But like I said, I have, talked with a few people from the program that have gone through it or going through it. And, some can doubt themselves along the way. And it can become, very challenging to think like, especially when you see symptoms increase at first. Like
Mm,
like I said, I have some pretty extreme detoxification symptoms. So I think, and of course, maybe because of my metabolic health with a high aerobic activity, maybe I did, heal a little bit quicker than some. Maybe some that, have much poorer health than me, not athletic, that maybe could come into play. And maybe they're going to deal with that for a lot longer, right? So I think when that's stretched out and you're kind of doubting yourself, oh, this is getting worse, this can't be right, right? And bowel movements might increase at first. I mean, but this is all part of the process, right? I mean, like you guys teach and preach, the body is a self-healing organism, and yeah, things are probably going to get worse at first because it needs to, it finally, if you give it those conditions that it needs to heal, then it's things are going to get rocky at first because the body's doing its thing, right? It's going through the motions and it's actually healing. So
Mm,
yeah, I think that's, you just really gotta kind of trust and then have faith, have some kind of faith that this will work out, because if you look to the countless clients that you guys have worked with and help them cure these diseases, like it works. You really just got to be as patient as you can. And this kind of like just ties into the second point is just be kind to yourself, right? So
mm,
at first, especially, I mean, I was already vegan. I was doing some fruit smoothies and stuff. So I was kind of like, I had one foot in already. So I think it was a little bit of an easier transition for me where, say if you're, especially culturally, if, you're a heavy meat eater or something like that, if you're not absolutely perfect at first, don't beat yourself up about it. Just focus on consistency, and getting to that kind of end result of like, let's dial this diet in, let's get there. But, in that kind of transition phase, yeah, just be kind with yourself because you're going to go through a lot, you're going to have these symptoms, you're going to especially be mentally missing, these comfort foods, like they provide a lot of comfort to people. So kind of, that over time you'll definitely find comfort in the beautiful fruits and vegetables that you have, I promise. But yeah, at first I think for some that can be difficult. um, and then the last one, I think this is really applicable. I know you guys have worked with quite a few athletes, is eating enough calories. So again, if
mm,
you're somebody maybe before you went on this journey, you ate a fair amount of fats, being nine calories per gram, versus, carbohydrates, which are the main fuel on this program, being 4 calories per gram. So you kind of got to realize that, this is a lower fat diet. And for some, especially if you're athletic, it might be challenging to eat enough, especially if you're not used to eating larger volumes. So just, work closely with you and your brother and make sure that, if your energy is low and that stuff, to talk to you guys and understand how many calories we're getting. So for me, yeah, I had to, smoothies were the big thing for me. I had to have a lot of smoothies because you're able to pack a lot of calories in there versus, if you're just, for me, like I can do 10 bananas in a smoothie, no problem. But if I'm just sitting here and eating bananas, I'm like 5 or 6 and I'm just kind of, this is just how it is. I get to 6 and I'm kind of like, I'm done. I don't know, like, I don't know
mm.
why, but for a smoothie, I can just, I can get through it much easier and I
Yeah.
really enjoy it,
Mm.
with the, yeah, with the fruit, unless it's ripe pineapple or ripe papaya, then I can eat it as much as I want, like, the whole fruit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just depends on the fruit. It's hard to get really good fruit in Canada, but yeah, it's a little bit of a sidebar. But yeah, those are my 3 tips. So just stick with it and be kind to yourself and make sure you're eating enough calories to fuel that healing process.
No, those are great tips, and yeah, when people struggle, it's generally if they're not eating enough calories. So that's a really good tip to for people. And even if you're not having someone who's coaching you through it, like you better be looking at them on how many calories you're eating because yeah, it's high volume, low caloric density food, and so you need to really look at how much you're eating. And if you really want to be successful, you need to be giving your body the right nourishment, as Devin mentioned. So, and then if you're an athlete like him, you've got to take it to another level because you're going to be expending a lot of energy when you're exercising too. So you got to keep a closer eye on how much you eat. But yeah, thank you for that, man. I think really really helpful, very valuable insights and sharing a very personal journey. Um, I find that extremely commendable when people come on here and they share for the benefit of other people. People watching this, get inspiration from people like you who've gone through um, gone through it and got to the other side. And when you know what to do, it's easy to know what to do. Obviously, um, there is a bit of a process to getting to the other side, but the concept is very simple, and the execution, if you do it right and be consistent with it, you get to the end result, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We got there.
So my favorite part of the interview, Devin, you now have a life after Crohn's. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I think we'll call it there. I think it was really, really helpful, guys. Everyone who guys and girls, everyone who's watching and listening to this, take inspiration from this guy. He's really put in a really good stint and taken control of his health, and he's left no stone unturned, which has allowed him to get the result here, and that's why you see a smiling face on the other end of the camera because you know you know how it feels. You know how it feels when you get cured, as you said. You get rid of it completely, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. So, if anyone's watching or listening on the podcast and you want to get similar results to Devin, get in touch with us and have a chat with us about how we can help you. Uh, for everyone who's watching and listening, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel or the podcast, I highly recommend you do that so you get notified of all our recent uploads that are upcoming, more testimony videos, more information about how to heal, some, scientific videos around uh, about diet and lifestyle. Shami's sharing his experiences. We just want to share as much as we can. Uh, if you haven't given this video a thumbs up, please do so that we can reach more people. And if you have any questions about Devin's journey, there's a comment section down there below. So please ask away and we'll do our best to answer to the best of our ability. Apart from that, Devin, mate, I'd really like to thank you again for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for everyone watching and listening, make sure that you eat plants and lots of them. Take care.